Hi there, thanks for stopping by. I know that some of you were hoping for a live video today, but I'm afraid that my technology just doesn't want to work. And I'm waiting for a cable to connect the fancy microphone to the computer to do a live. I was actually interviewed this week for the Fiber Talk podcast. I'll pop a link below and of course tell you when my interview goes live. And nothing worked. My camera didn't work, the mic didn't work, and I've spent ages looking up what I had done wrong. So I'm recording this instead, and my apologies. I will get it right. So today's video is talking about our new kit, which is our Seashell Looms kit. Now, this has taken quite a few months actually in development, so we're really pleased with it. And basically I'm going to talk you through what's in the kit and how to use at least one of the looms today. And then over the next few weeks, you know, as we go through different videos, I'll also show other things. Along with the kit itself, we also have a pattern pack for a panel, a wool applique panel, and separately a group of threads for it. We decided to sell the threads separately because you could use the recommended threads, or of course you can use anything in your stash. And I know a lot of us have a lot of threads in our stash. And basically, the panel itself is to create this little panel, okay? And we do have a large bundle with sort of the Seashell looms, with the pattern pack that's got all bits and pieces. It's got the things for the little china shards and the instructions and so on, and then the separate thread and merino wool pack. And we've bundled that all up together, and we've sold it very quickly on pre-order, but it will be back in stock as soon as we get some more of the threads in. So now I'll turn the camera over and we can take a proper look at the kit itself and how it works. So, what are you getting in the kit? Well, you're going to get a 24-page booklet, which gives you instructions for warping up and creating a lot of different shells. Also included are hints and tips for how to create a couple of special shell shapes. Say that quickly 3 times. And there is also a diagram of what I did on the front cover being this particular panel, which I haven't finished off to do anything else with because I had to keep it flat for the photography. And so you can see that there's quite a lot of things that you can do with your choice of threads. This is just a random selection of threads. And so, yeah, there's a lot you can do. I'll just set that aside. You're also going to get 2 skeins of number 8 pearl cotton. The colors will vary on that. You're getting a crochet hook. You're going to get a tapestry needle. You're going to get a little bag. And that bag contains all of your looms. And now, I know that this isn't the easiest thing for the cameras to pick up, but you can see we have a nice shape to the looms, and these are our registered design. So, how to use them. Also, one of the first things that you can do, of course, is decorate your little bag. I actually created a button, and we will have button molds up on the website this week. that correspond to a couple of the looms so that you can more easily make a button. And so I took out the drawstring and made a little button pouch with some of the shells. And I will probably add a few more. Early days yet. So, lots of goodies in here. A little explanation of the diagrams. Basically, every loom will be numbered along the top part of the loom and lettered along the bottom. The top part is the tabs are numbered. The bottom part, the spaces between the tabs are lettered. That will give you an indication of how to warp. And then the instructions here for each different style will tell you how to warp it, because a couple of them you can warp in a couple of different ways to create different shells, and then how to work it. So what stitch you will work. Your booklet has the stitches at the front, so you can refer to those if you're unfamiliar with them. I'm actually going to use a darkish ball of Wonderful 8 as opposed to undoing the skein, but I do have a video on the channel on how to easily use those skeins. The pearl cotton skeins are not pull skeins, so don't just pull the end. You do need to unwind the skein. So I'll pop a link in the description below so that you can do that. So to start, you could, if you wish, go ahead and tape the thread to the back of the loom, but I'm not going to do that because I don't want that to interfere with what you're looking at. And I do know that I'm trying to use a darker thread than you might first use, simply so that you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going from B to 7 and down to C, okay? So this is loom number 3, by the way, in case that's not showing up. And then, so I'm coming around, back up through B, and then I'm going to 8, and then back to B, then C to 6, back to C, over to B, to 9, back to B, C to 5, back to C, B to 10, I'm sure you're catching what I'm doing now, back to B, C to 4, back to C. And now we're going to weave for the last few. Now what this means is you need to take a length from your ball or spool, thread your needle, and then basically I'm going to weave through some of these threads. Now what I mean by weave is just go over and under at the base here. You don't have to count the threads, they're all overlapping anyway. And so what this is to do is so that you can actually come up and around, and then I'm going to weave again, but in opposition to what I did previously. But again, it's just basically trying to hold those together and around the next tab, and then weave again. Now when you are working this warp, don't have it too tight, because as you do the work on it, it will tighten up again, and you might have difficulty taking the threads off of the loom. Very much in the same way as if you were working a Yorkshire button, you wouldn't work too tightly on the loom, because these are reusable. So you need to be able to take everything off not get a kink. And there we have our loom warped up. So I'm just going to do a basic design at the moment, and that is working rounding back stitch, or RBS, which is the same stitch that we use on a Dorset button and the same stitch that we use on a Yorkshire button. And it's basically a ribbed stitch. So I'm going to go under the first group. Now, for most of the designs, you will work over 2 warp threads, okay? Of course, at either side, there is only 1 warp thread, so you can only work over 1 warp thread. So I'm going to go under that and back around and under it again. And then I'm going to move to the next pair of warp threads and go under those. And then I'm going to come back around those and go under it again. So I'm basically wrapping the thread. And then I'm going to go under the next pair. Back around those only, and under the next, and so on. And so each pair of wrapped threads, pair of warp threads is being wrapped. So now we have to turn the direction and head back the other way. So I've already wrapped the end coming this way, so I'm just going to go over it and then underneath the next pair. And then I will carry on wrapping around and working the rounding back stitch in the opposite direction. Now you can, if you wish, for a finer shell with finer ribs, go along and go around each of these paired warps individually, and that creates another look again. And obviously changing your threads will also give different looks. And then at the end, I'm going around and then back under the next one and carry on back and forth until I've pretty much filled the shape. Now I'm running a little bit short of thread, so I'm going to show you how to change your colors. The easiest way is to just get to the point where you want to change a color or to add more thread, and carefully thread your needle down one of these ribs. And you can just snip that off and leave a little bit of a tail, which you can trim off later. Thread a new length and then repeat going up, but what I like to do is if you can go up from the same spoke, but if it's a little tight, you can always go up on a different one. You can also come down because you will be wrapping the end of your thread around the spokes. So it's entirely up to you. I'm going to go up, but because I'm going to go in the same rib, I'm just going to make sure I hold on to that tail that I left to make sure that that doesn't get caught up and pull up and out, so that that stays in position. And there we go. And now I can carry on working the stitches. Now, in order to keep this curved shape, you'll need to decrease. And basically all that that means is that you won't cover, you won't try to keep covering when there's no more warp thread to cover. So I think I can do one or two more perhaps on this side, but I'll stick to just the one. And then when I come back this way, so I'll go down to here, and when I come back this way, I won't cover the end. I will cover this one next to the end, and then so on. So as I work up until I'm only working across the top part. So there's the loom covered, lovely ribbed stitches, but my thread is at the center. So what you need to do is just work a row in either direction to get yourself to the end, okay? This will just give you a nice way of finishing off your seashell. So I've worked down, and now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to tie a little knot just to stop that slipping, okay? I'm going to trim those two tails, and then pull up a little bit when I do so, so that that thread will sink down. Nope, didn't quite snip it. Like that. And now we're ready to remove the loom, the seashell from the loom. So you can just flick or use your needle just to pull those threads off of the tabs. Now with the curved ones, you'll find that if you work one side, then the next, then you'll find that the top one will come off. If you try to go all the way over, you'll probably have a bit of difficulty. The bottom one always comes off last because that's got the most threads. So there's your seashell shape. Now on the top, you can finish this off in a number of ways depending on how you're going to be using your shell. You may simply wish to gather these up so that you can sort of take it around something. You may wish to tuck them under if you want to stitch it onto something as applique. However, in the kit, you do have a crochet needle so that you can crochet the edge. And this is a great thing to do for your Yorkshire buttons too. So start from the opposite end to where your thread end is, okay? And you're going to go through one of the loops, and then you're going to go through the next one and pull it through the first, and then the next one and pull it through, and so on. So you're just making a crochet chain basically. And this is particularly nice if you want to do an applique where you're going to see the edge of the shell. So for instance, if you want to make a clam and you want to put two together, Then you have the end, and the easiest way for this last loop is to take your needle with your excess thread up through, and then that can fold down and come back down the ribs to tuck in for a really neat finish. You can see the end is lovely then, and great if you want to do sort of, as I said, if you want to do clams or anything, so that you will see the inside of it. I tend to carry this all the way through to the bottom. Now sometimes that can be a bit difficult depending on how tight your end wraps are on the last one, but you can usually get it through quite nicely. And so what about this end here? Well, the easiest thing to do with that is decide how you're going to use it and simply fold it under. You can, if you want to do something flat, you can fold it at this point and just do a little bit of stitching. But you can also use this excess as an anchor point for stitching. So if you're working appliqué, you can just go ahead and stitch that down to your piece, and then fold the main shell body over. But I'm just going to tuck that under for the time being. You can also obviously cut it and embroider over it for the different types of clamshells too. And so there is our basic shell. This can be placed onto something. So if we go back to the front cover piece, you can see that you can put it down, you can stuff it and shape the shells so that you've got different interest in it. You could put them upside down, put another one on top of it so that you have sort of a clam shape. But you can also manipulate these, and I'm sure that each of you will come up with different ways to manipulate them. So you can roll them. So you could just simply roll it like that to be a longer shell, or you could sort of fold. So what I've been doing is taking an end and sort of folding it up and then twisting around, and you sort of get a conch shell type of thing. And the more you play, the more you will come up with a sort of shape that you really like, and then stitch that down into place. And you can really play with these and have a great time figuring out what you're going to do and how you're going to use them. And so the Beachcomber panel. The panel pack comes with a booklet and a pattern, so a large A3 pattern that gives you sort of a placement guide for everything. And so it goes through in the booklet telling you which seashells to work from the original book, and then how to put the things together to layer it up, and what stitches I recommend. In that, I've used it. With the actual pack, you will also get some other things. So you will get the booklet, the pattern, you will get some gray felt. The gray felt is for the pebbles and the backing, okay? You will get a piece of patterned wool. This particular wool may vary. you will get a piece of printed satin to create your shards, along with a piece of heavy-duty pelmet viline so that you've got a hard shape. And that's to create these. I have a thing that every time I see a bit of pottery, I collect it. And so I have a bowl full of pottery, and I thought, how can I use these shards? And I've been pondering it for years. I've got a piece where I did shisha stitch to put them all down, but I didn't like it. It bulked it up. It didn't make it look right. So here's part of what our beachcomber comes along with, is these shards. You can choose as many or as few as you wish. You'll get the printed sand, so that's the panel here. So as you can see, you've got the printed sand and you've got the decorative panel. And you will get binding for the edge, and you will get some rayon ribbon. This is so that you can create your seaweeds, and some gimp so that you can create your, again, seaweeds and things like that. And you will get a needle pack. So it's got milliner's needles, so you can do your bullion stitches and your knots a little bit more easily, and different chenille needles and so on, so that you can stitch. You will also get some cotton wool so that you can pad up your various pebbles and so on. You will not get the thread with the pattern pack. You have to buy the thread separately. Now, we decided to do that so that you could choose. Basically, you could use your threads from your own stash, maybe just have a few extras. And the other thing that you don't get is the merino wool, which is this background, this piece, and the white pebbles. And again, that is all part of, because you may wish to do this in different colors, or you may wish to do this as a guide, maybe put it on cotton. We just decided to give you the hard to find things, so the shards and the sand. Now, if all you were to do were to get the beachcomber and the seashell kit, remember you need the seashell kit, and you just use some thread from your stash, you could make yourself something like this with what's in the packet anyways. Just add some stuffing, make any of the shells that you want with any of the threads that you want, do some pebbles using the same direction, and make yourself a little cushion. So you've got options there, even if you don't buy the thread pack. So if you would like me to do more, if you would like me to try to do live videos and talk about some of our products and go through some of these things, do please let me know. Leave a comment, because I won't try if you don't really want me to. And I do hope to make a few more, go through some of these other shells that are in the kit and show you how some of these are done. So, if there's one that you particularly want to know how to do, let me know in the comments, and let's see what we can do. So I will leave the link to the podcast and the links to the products and everything in the description below. And as I said, if we happen to be out of stock of anything, we will be getting it back in, so just hold tight. And thank you so much for everyone who has placed pre-orders. Until the next time, take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.